Hey everybody, welcome back to the DANCNG SOBR podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this channel. If you are on YouTube and you would like to support this channel, please hit the subscribe button. That could be your way of supporting this channel. If you are on the audio platforms, please rate or comment. And I want to give a thank you to our host here, Outer Circle Media, out on the west side. Thank you for having us in your studio. Every week I do a small business shout out where I shout out some of my favorite businesses in the neighborhood. This week I want to shout out Latinx with Plants. This is their Instagram below, Latinx with Plants. You could find them on Instagram, and it's a small plant shop out on Cesar Chavez near Evergreen. Shout out to them for all the greenery and happiness they bring. I want to give the biggest shout out to Movita Juice Bar. Our sponsor, Movita Juice Bar, has been with us since day one, and you can visit their website, movitajuicebar.com, to find a location, or you can also order through your food apps if you want to get something brought to your house. This next month in April, we're going to be doing a bike ride with some of my friends in the neighborhood to one of the locations of Movita Juice Bar. So keep in touch with us through Instagram, and you'll get more details about when and where that ride will happen. That's going to be April 23rd. And our guest today is talented musician and studio engineer, Joel Jerome Morales. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, welcome back to the DANCNG SOBR podcast. Today we are joined by musician extraordinaire.
Musical musician. That's a good combo.
I'm really bad at adjectives like this. Studio master, Joel Jerome, a.k.a. Joel Jerome Morales.
Correct. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thank you,
Appreciate
brother.
it.
We appreciate you taking time off of your busy schedule to come out here.
I don't come to the west side for anybody.
Keep in mind, estás en tu casa. You're welcome here. Anytime you need to take a break, anytime you want to talk about, you want to change the subject or anything you want to do, we're here for you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I like to start off always just getting to know the person a little more, the guest. And we met just a few months ago. You reached out to me to take some photos, and we did a photo shoot, so we spent a day together that day. And after that day, little by little, I started hearing more and more music and just went on some really interesting trips with your music.
So have I, yeah.
Yeah. Your music, let's get into that a little later, but let's start with, I just want a little bit about where you grew up and what neighborhoods.
L.A., Hawthorne, California.
Mm.
Born and raised on the playground is where I spend most of my days. That's for my wife. She loves when I say that. Yeah, so Hawthorne, California, LA native. Great. I loved being from Hawthorne. Big, rich musical history there.
Mm.
It's also like 5 minutes from the beach, so I grew up by the beach. Not super close by the beach, close enough, so diverse area. So it was cool. I kind of like credit it to informing me about a lot of things, especially different cultures and
something
peoples.
about that's not considered South Bay, right?
Yeah, it's the South Bay.
South Bay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I mean, something about those areas always they do bring out a specific kind of musician. I think I've met some people that
Yeah, I mean, Hawthorne alone has got Red Cross. You got members of Black Flag. You got the Beach Boys. You got Chris Montez. You got Emmett Rhodes. It's pretty interesting that little town. I mean, the whole area, but that little town in particular has
and
like a lot of things.
It's a lot of like really deep thinkers, I think. Kind of.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's the Beach Boys were a big influence on me. When I found out they're from Hawthorne, I was amazed and also like, whoa, that's cool. But amazed because I didn't know. It's kind of sad that the city doesn't really
shout them out.
Doesn't shout out the musical history in general. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the Beach Boys are, you can say, America's Beatles as far as influence in the 60s,
Definitely.
So the fact that there's no up until recently, there was no plaque or anything commemorating them, or the high school we both went to. The music room is like dedicated to somebody I've never heard of. But I mean, maybe they're cool. I'm not saying that it should degrade the who's named after, but the Beach Boys. Brian Wilson went there, and there's nothing at the high school that says it, or nothing when I was there. But
wow, I knew the Beach Boys were a big influence on your musical stylings, but I didn't know that they also went to the same high school.
Same high school. I've seen
what
the
high school
yearbooks. Yeah, Hawthorne High School.
Hawthorne High.
Yeah. Cougars.
Wow.
Sea House. Yeah, South Bay. It's pretty cool. Like I said, you got surfers, skaters, you got gangsters, you got artists, you got everything there. That's why it was pretty lucky, I think, for me to live there and grow up there.
Yeah. How early was it that music started to become a part of your life?
I mean, like anyone else hearing around the house, my mom was a singer. She was my dad's a singer. Okay. Back in the day, before she got married and had me. My dad played music a little bit, guitar. But it was always around, enjoyed it on the radio, the records, especially the cumbias, the parties, the party songs and everything. But playing it didn't really hit me until I think La Bamba came out, the movie. So that was the
I remember the day I went to the theater to see that movie.
Yeah.
What year was that?
88, I think. 87 or 88, yeah.
Wow.
One of those.
And so you wanted to be, Richie and the Flying Guitar.
I wanted an electric guitar real bad, I'll tell you that.
I bought a guitar once at the Mercado, and I remember walking home with it and getting, like, people, like, yelling at me, like, orale,
Yeah. No, I really wanted an electric one. We didn't have a VCR player, but my aunt worked at a video store. I don't know, for you kids that don't know, there are video stores, and if you didn't have a VCR, you can just rent one. So she just, obviously let me take one when I needed it. And
that's awesome.
I broke the VHS rewinding "We Belong Together" over and over again. Like that song, I don't know, it did something to me, transported me. So that movie was definitely big as far as me wanting to play music. Yeah.
Wow. I love that. And when did you start? So after that, you picked up a guitar in 86. How old were you?
87, 88, 86, I was 10.
Okay.
My dad had guitars around, acoustic guitars.
Around.
Always around. I didn't start playing it until maybe 12, 13, 14 for like a month. But it was like a nylon string guitar. I didn't know what to do with it. And then, like I said, the movie came out. I was 12. So I wanted an electric guitar. So I didn't have one. Still went back to acoustic. Nothing happened till finally in high school I was able to buy an electric guitar. My mom went out of town. I figured she used to go to Mexico like every summer and every other winter. And when she'd go, she'd leave like money for me and my brother to eat, basically buy groceries. But I used it to buy my first guitar. So, and my brother didn't mind. We stocked up on cereal, and that's all we ate anyway. So we were happy.
And you kept them entertained.
Yeah. So I didn't really get a guitar till I was like 17 or 15 or something, like 16, I don't know, something like that. Yeah.
Speaking of how you said that We Belong Together transported you, took you somewhere, there's something that your music does to me too. And I don't smoke weed, but I used to smoke weed, and I used to smoke a lot of weed. And in particular, the song, which one is it? I don't have it written down here, but I think Making It Home or something along the lines.
We Made It Home?
We Made It Home. Dude, that song, I put it on, and it put me in a trance. And I sat there until the song was over. And an entire just trip, I think the sound itself sonically just fills up the room, fills up your head, and puts you in this really pensive place. But the lyrics as well, too. I mean, they're very, philosophical and deep. And it's like, tell me the first few lines.
Do I know who I am? Do I know where I should stand? Yeah, it's very. I mean, it's one of those end of the road,
Will I end up
end of the
alone?
life, end of the road type songs. Like, what did I do? What did I?
So the whole thing to me was like, I remembered going back. I mean, this is a Dancing Sober podcast because I've been sober 10 years. But I remember those days of like leaving a bar, wasted, high, getting in a car, and then like turning on the car to drive home, and those are the exact thoughts. And then you get home and you just like throw yourself down on the bed, and I don't know, but that song took me on that whole ride home when you're driving home alone after a thing like that, and wondering like, all those questions about life that happen when you're really high.
Yeah. And for me, like, just as the fact I'm getting older, you know, I'm in my mid-40s now, so it's like things like real life and timetables and stuff really start to hit you a little bit, and you kind of assess. Every birthday, my birthday just was like last week, you know. So you always assess. Thank you. And yeah, so the whole record, I mean, as you know, as everyone did a record during the pandemic, apparently, obviously, and so this was also done during that time, and you had a lot of extra extra time to think about stuff. So that was a big reason too, I'm sure.
If I could just go back a little, was there, because I mean, it's not the only song that has this, and it's not the only album that has this, like really deep philosophies and, you know, inner discussions. Can you maybe help us see how, like, a person like yourself, like, started to think that way, started to maybe you know, go deep inside? Was it just the weed, or
I mean, yeah, there's always those thoughts, right? But like I said, I think the pandemic and just the nature of it, and the fact that everything stopped, and for artists like myself, musicians, the world stopped completely for what they do, and there was no safety net for musicians. Like everyone, there's no PUA yet for musicians and freelancers yet, or whatever at that time, you know. So when I was writing the stuff lyrically, and it just makes you think about, there's no safety net to be a musician. There's no, what am I doing? Should I be doing this? You know, has this been satisfying? Is this something I should do more responsibly financially for myself and my family, or should I just go my vision? Just things that artists, I'm sure, always have to deal with. The reality of life and living and survival, and their passion, which for art music is nowhere near as, it's valued culturally, but nowhere near valued monetarily as it should. Super undervalued, obviously. So those, just everything at once coming at you real hard, and the thought of like catching some disease and dying, you know, some virus and dying was a big thing too, you know. But I don't know, as an artist, like a musician, I'm always thinking about that kind of stuff. Should I be, you know, I'm really passionate about what I do, but is it gonna like make me happy if I can't survive in the real world with paying my rent and being supported by my wife, and, you know, being able to like contribute? So
what about Everybody Wants Somebody? That song has a little bit of a, like, a more a little happier, but then it also drops into this like really cool, like slow thing. And I want to know kind of, you know, I try to get into like the creative process of what's happening when you're working on things like this. How do you make these choices, or where does the influence come from to like have this soundscape and then like switch it and, you know, go into a different
Beatles, Beach Boys for sure. Honestly, early on musically, when I say the Beatles or the Beach Boys were an influence, people think musically like quarterly and all that stuff. While some of that's true, more of it was experimentation for me. That he went from being a really good songwriter of like just amazing melodic things to like an experimental musician, and that really, like, I love experimental musicians who also have melody. So that sort of like experimentation was always big with me. So switching stuff and going back and forth was always kind of like, I don't know, intrigued me. Even from Nirvana, which was just from going soft to loud, that sort of dynamics have always been kind of cool. I always like dynamics that have to do with sonic stuff too, or arrangements and stuff. So if that just means dropping out the drum set, or everything going down to a 3/4, stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure the herbal jazz cigarettes help when you're when you're coming up with that stuff. But since I'm in my own studio and I work on my own time, I'm like just crafting it like a painting. So
dude, it's
whatever happens.
Beautiful. I mean, there's something about your music. I'm not a trained musician in any way, so I mean, I can only speak like what I feel. But
you're a music lover, that counts.
Just fucking playing, like hitting play on your shit, just takes you somewhere. And it's not, of course, there's a lot of influence from other music that we know, so there's a lot of familiarity in what you hear, but it's completely your own. I mean, you're creating your own thing here, and there's so much of a feeling of like, I know exactly where I'm at when I listen to your music. And it's a lot of memories, It's a lot of just places in my brain, people that I remember when I hear these sounds, and it's completely like I called it a contemplation magnifier.
Nice, yeah.
So if you're having a thought, just like weed, you're having a thought, you put that on, and it'll magnify that thought, and it'll take you. Yeah, it'll take you somewhere deep, and I'm sure that it comes from like the Beach Boys kind of sound or something like that. But I also like hear like some Neil Youngish kind of vibe, and but you can literally like just listen to the whole CD and just sit there.
That's usually my goal, to have you be able to listen to the whole record, or at least even if it's just a song to take you on a trip a little bit, a lot of my lyrics, a lot of everything is very like dreamlike, daydream-like, kind of like you said, contemplative. So yeah, it definitely comes out with a little herbal jazz help, and like I said, I can just craft it in my studio, so I just let it go where it goes. Kind of like you mentioned Neil Young. He's on my Mount Rushmore too, so it's cool that you say that. But one thing I really kind of like picked up on was his audio verite style of recording too. So I do a lot of tracking, a lot of like studio trickery, but then I also love to just like capture it like a documentary. Whatever happens, warts and all. Take whatever you're feeling and go with it right then and there. So he's a big influence that way too, and that actually really informed the new record.
Awesome. Yeah. This new record, Super Flower Blood Moon.
Yeah.
On Dangerbird Records. Mm-hmm. This new record, you release a single today. I didn't write down the title. What was it again?
Falling Star.
Falling Star. And you, or on some of the notes, it says that it's a tribute to Juan Gabriel.
Well, the video was inspired.
Okay.
Yeah, the video was inspired by Querida.
Oh, okay.
Querida. Yeah, exactly. He's got the one shot of him just in the, like I said, the low-cut burgundy sweater, white pants. It's just him going back and forth with the camera, like one shot almost the whole way through, candlelight. I mean, that video was like, talk about transporting me, that one too, back in the day. In the day. So I always wanted to do a little homage to it, Don't have the major label budget for the big room full of candles and fire department standing by, but we did something in honor of it. So he was an influence for that video, but musically too. Like, we're talking about music influences. Like, I got a strong pop thing in me too. It's not just experimental music that might not like be listenable sometimes. It's like super melodic and hooks, and I mean, Juan Gabriel, you can't really beat him for songwriting and hooks and stuff like that. So that 70s, 80s Mexican pop, Latino pop was always big too.
Now, I saw this in writing. I don't know if it was the name of an album or if it's something that you call your studio, but it was something like a psychedelic thrift store folk.
Yeah.
Is that how you explain your sound?
Yeah. Well, my old band member, John Paul, came up with that one time as a description of like what he thought we do.
Love it.
And I was like, yeah,
perfect.
That's perfect. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up
because that psychedelic part is that part that, like, as soon as you get that soundscape, you're like,
right.
You're somewhere different, and it's totally folk, and
yeah, and John Coltrane, like, just like found sound. Sometimes it's just like the whole thrift shop experience. So, yeah, he came up with that, and I grabbed on him. I was like, that's perfect, and I named the record after that in like 2014. But yeah.
So from that to like now, do you think your sound has grown, changed, maybe just the studio elements of it? What do you think is different from?
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved, grown, matured, maybe. Still like the same thing, inspired by the same things. I am blessed to have better gear now that I feel like has really helped me make the music I wanted to make, or make it sound the way I want to make. The approach is still the same. So, it's just, I don't kind of know what I'm doing until I'm doing it really sometimes. But I listen back all the time to old stuff and new stuff, and there's a common thread. It's not I haven't deviated too much from stuff. Maybe I started on a 4-track back in the day, but now I'm on like a expensive tube gear and a computer.
I have been listening to your music on shuffle, and so including the new 3 songs that you just released, and all the way back to all your stuff on Spotify, and it goes back and forth and seamlessly. It doesn't seem to matter, like, you know, which album is on or which. It's just this strong fucking.
That probably has a lot to do with also the way that I used to, before this last record, the way I used to write or put records together was I didn't sit down and write like 12 songs. I basically I record all the time whenever I feel like it. And so like, oh, here's 12 songs I could probably put together or figure it out or whatever. So there might be like a year old, 2 year old, sometimes 3, 4, 10. I've used songs that are really old. Yeah. And honestly, like Spotify has like a fraction of what I actually have done on Spotify, like a little fraction of it, like a small amount. But you know, it's I don't know. There's still a common thread, I think, and like but albums have always been like a mishmash of stuff, so they probably cross over well because of that reason. More like a mixtape. That's how I used to think about it. I'm like from the South Bay, a lot of hip hop references. It's a mixtape.
I want to just because you talked about getting like 12 songs together, so I do want to touch on the fact that for this album that you're releasing now, this is the one you wrote during COVID, right?
Right before.
Right before.
Recorded during COVID, though. Yeah.
And you decided to give yourself 2 weeks to finish how many songs?
An album's worth, whatever that was going to be. Yeah.
And I'm sure you had bits and pieces, and you were like, all right, but I got to make these bits and pieces, finalize these songs in 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it was a hard deadline I gave myself, but Jim, who works at Danger Bird,
I appreciate that kind of like hard deadline, because I have to do that to myself too, to like finish something.
Exactly, and it was actually a different deadline than I've ever given myself, as far as like the nature of it. Like I understand what you're saying totally. We have to give ourselves deadline, or else it'll just take forever. But no, Jim, the Danger Birds, he's like, he knows me. He's like, we might want to do a record. Do you have any new songs you can show me? I'm like, yeah, I could put something together for you. I'm thinking I got all these old songs or whatever. He's like, but I don't want anything recorded. I want you to sing it into your phone. Nothing you've recorded or have released anywhere else, because he knows I do that too. And I'm like, okay. Took it as a little challenge. I was like, sure. I love little projects or ways to get me motivated in doing it. So that's what I did basically every night around midnight, because my wife, who was studying to get her PhD at the time, would go to sleep early. I didn't want to go downstairs to the studio, so I just stayed upstairs with a nylon string guitar that I had just gotten. Like I said, I remember I started off with a nylon string guitar, and I hadn't had one in like 10 years. Like 10 years, so I don't know. When I got my hand on one again, it was like, whoa. Makes you play differently, makes you just write differently. In the middle of the night, I had to whisper a little more into a phone. Like you said, I had like little voice notes that I went through, sparked up a little herbal jazz cigarette, listened to my voice notes. Whichever one tickled my fancy, picked that one, and then immediately try to finish it, and then lyrics and all, which is if you know me, lyrics are like. So do you mean hard. You finished recording these? No, finished. I was gonna say. I mean, I could have. But I finished writing them. Okay. Yeah, no, I finished writing them completely, and I don't do that. I'm like such a procrastinator, especially lyrically. Like, I don't do that. So it was a whole different kind of test for me, but it was very fruitful. After the first 3 nights, I was like, oh, I'm onto something here, because I like all these songs, and so far, and they have like this common thread just already, because I'm writing all at the same time. So listening to a lot of like bolero and trios and stuff, and like there were certain patterns and guitar chords I was doing kind of for the same, like for different songs, but like the same way. So it was cool. I was like, this is good. If I get something out of it, it'll be the first time I do it all in one go. And it'll sound like a record. So I was pretty stoked on it. And I just did it for a couple weeks and ended up with 13, 14 songs, I think. Wow. Yeah. That's pretty badass. Yeah, I was pretty stoked. I was happy. What's your typical songwriting process? That's the thing. I'm telling you. It's like, I love recording. That's like my thing. Like if I could, I record covers. And if I don't have a song. Your studio is like your little lab. I mean, you have so many toys in there. Yeah, I mean, over the years, I've collected forever, since 97 when I started doing it on a 4-track, 95, whatever it was, until now. I have everything still, and like, it's my little playground. It's like painting by yourself, but I'm painting orally, AURALLY. I don't know. So I can do whatever I want. So the songwriting stuff, it's like I said, it's a little different. I don't finish lyrics. Maybe I have like a riff, or I just kind of flesh it out musically, see where it goes. But in this instance, I had all the song first, and then I was going to record it. So that was a whole different thing for me. Yeah, it's usually a mishmash, hodgepodge affair. Do you set out to like write a specific
like lyrically? I mean, do you set out to write something specific, or do you just like wait for something to like?
Never. Lyrics, I say, are like the hardest thing for me. I'm not a writer. I love reading people's writing when it's good. It's lyrically.
Your lyrics are beautiful, though.
But it's so hard for me. Like, it works by part of my brain where it actually, like, oh, I'm done. I can't think of anything. You know, doing emails, I just can't. But this record in particular was the first time, like, I'm like, okay, here's this little voice note. It sounds like this. Let me flesh it out. Start singing along. What is this vibe I'm feeling? What does it remind me of? And try to pick a story or, like, you know, something, kind of bring it from the air, from the song itself. So I use the song as a way to guide the lyrics a lot of the ways. Personal experiences, non-personal experiences, other people's experiences, you know, stories, just things, imaginative stories, trying to figure out how to tell a certain story. But I let the song kind of, the vibe of the song dictate that for this record. And normally it's not like that at all.
Love it.
But I loved it. It was actually really cool. Yeah.
What I have to go back a little bit again, and I wonder, because we grew up around the same time, and I know how big hip hop was back in those days. And I heard you in another interview say that you grew up with KDAY, which is what I grew up with, and I grew up calling in and winning prizes and going to their concerts and all that.
Nice.
So I just wonder, like, how a young boy, you know, from Hawthorne, you know, growing up with hip hop and those kind of elements, and then fell into this folk, this. And not just fell into it to like play with it. Like, I mean, it's really like a part of you. It's a beautiful part.
It was a long journey, I'll tell you that. It definitely was all about hip hop. You know, there's growing up, K-Day. I mean, I remember that was the first, well, not the first, but the music that really, like, oh my God, this got me. Like the beats, the heavy beats, like just the rap and everything. When I first heard King of Rock, like I recorded off K-Day on my cassette and wrote out the lyrics, you know, like just so I can get it all down.
We didn't have genius lyrics back then.
Definitely not. I think about it all the time. What would be like if we grew up around the internet and like we just research this stuff. But no, I mean, it hit me hard. Like hip hop hit me hard. And so like up until high school, and then Nirvana, like it did everybody else, basically. Yeah. I mean, I liked the Beatles on the, you know, in the grocery store every now and again or whatever.
My uncles played it and stuff.
My mom played some top 40 stuff, American Top 40 in the car. Yeah. You know, I remember Every Breath You Take being on the radio all the time and all this stuff like that, you know?
The Police.
Yeah. But no, it wasn't, the rock and roll didn't hit me until high school. And I remember the moment, and everything. It's like a pool hall near my high school that we would go at lunchtime. And I was about to hit some sweet shot. And I just hear this opening chorus. Dang, dang, dang. I'm like, what's this? Like, I never heard that before. Yeah. That reaction that a lot of people apparently had. And so that was like, whoa, light switch.
That's really interesting how that happened to you and happened to me, but in a different way. I was in a point where, I mean, hip hop was a major part of my life, and I was even writing raps and you know, performing and shit. But like hip hop then kind of like started getting to like the whole MC Hammer thing and the selling out thing, and it just became something different that it wasn't at first. And that's around the same time that grunge also like came out, and I totally fell into the grunge world, and you know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, and all those things for a long time until Wu-Tang like took me back. But
96, 94.
But yeah, very similar.
Yeah, I mean, hip hop, I was still digging it until 93 for sure. I mean, The Chronic, I was still huge, and that was 92 or something, 91.
I don't even remember.
And like Cypress Hill, that record was, you know, I remember I didn't smoke pot at the time, but my friends in the car was always playing the car. Yeah. It was still there for sure, but when I heard the rock and roll, and that you can kind of do it with your friends, just get a guitar, and I obviously had my guitar passed with Richie Valens, so I'm thinking, oh, you know, it kind of awakened it again to play music. So at first it was just playing rock and roll, punk rock. It's the other thing about being from where I'm from. There's a big punk rock history, backyard shows in Lenox and Inglewood and Hawthorne, and just like anywhere.
And you were that age too. Where
exactly that age, you know. We're like, oh yeah, I can't get to a club. I don't care. I'm going to go to this backyard, and it's going to be amazing. And it was, you know, throw shows and play shows. And so there's a big period of that. And then the other turning point to folk was college radio station, KXLU. Huge influence, great show, great radio station, and very important. I'm glad I was able to hear that. Everybody should check it out, 88.9 FM. I heard Beck on their show playing, or the song was not Loser, Pay No Mind. And I remember where I was at, too, for that. It's like these moments were really big, because apparently I remember. But I was on Hawthorne Boulevard, going to my friend's house in Lenox, and I want 11th, making a left. Right when I'm about to make a left, I hear the chorus of this song on KXU come on. I was like, what the heck? It kind of sounds like it slows down. It's just this weird, like, trippy, like, acoustic thing. And you don't hear acoustic stuff on the radio at that point. It's like, unless it's Tracy Chapman, which I love, but
of course,
it's just not the same. But that moment, I was like, oh, switched over to guitar, the acoustic guitars right away. Like, just started playing acoustic guitar and recording on my 4-track, doing weird noises because, Beck was an early influence on the folk, junk folk type of thing.
I did want to write that. I was going to research the name of his album that has all these slow songs. It's a more current album. I forgot what it's called. But I did make a connection too with your music and Beck. Like,
I'll be honest. To me, it's like up until '94. That's it for me for Beck. After that, I didn't like much of it. He kind of changed and went back to Scientology. I don't know what it was.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
I kind of did my research a little bit. But, he was doing cooler, weirder stuff for me, in my opinion. You guys can love it, obviously. But the stuff that really spoke to me was, like, One Foot in the Grave album, which was on K Records, an independent record, and Mellow Gold, which was recorded by Rob Schnaff, who mixed my record. And that's another story. But... those two records in particular, and Stereopathetic Soul Manure, another mixtape almost. Like he did like the stuff I like. It sounded like 4-track stuff and real songs put together, and there's all this crazy album. I was like, this is it. This is cool. Yeah. So
it really blows my mind sometimes. Like I just met you a few months ago, so I'm like this brand new like fan and researching you little by little, and your music growing on me more and more every time I listen to it. And then, like, to hear these stories of, like, everything that you've been doing for such a long period of time and working hard and doing your shows. And what do you think, I don't know where I'm going with this question, but where do you see, like, this next album taking you, I guess, career-wise?
To the top. To the top. No, I want to go to Mexico. I want to go to Latin America. I'd love to be able to like start playing shows out there. That's my goal with this record, is to like get to my people somehow. It's been a while since I put out a record on the label, for various reasons. And this label's great. They're great people. They're friends too. I've known them for years. Been in bands with, been on tour with people on the label. And they're super supportive, and hopefully. My goal, my small goal is just to get to Mexico and Latin America and like play for my peoples. Go only play on the beaches and stuff, and just do that.
I think what I'm trying to ask is more like does working, doing all these shows and everything, is how is it for an artist musician to make it these days? Just playing music.
It's impossible. Yeah. It's pretty impossible unless you have like a huge bankroll behind you and like a lot of support and no responsibilities.
That's crazy. How do we do it?
That's my whole thing. It's like that's the point of like those songs and like thinking about it. It's like we're doing something important, super important for culture. I mean, as soon as the pandemic hit, what were people doing? They were going on Spotify. They're going on Netflix. They're like they're using music and art as like a crutch and as like safety blanket, and it's important, but music is devalued completely. Costs less than a cup of coffee. It's just like that you'll drink once and that's it. Like people don't, so it's really hard when people say, like, or they think I'm doing better than I am. I was like, no, I'm not. Maybe I'm not on the streets or anything, but like I'm not, like there's no safety net. There's no like retirement plan. This is it. So it's a tough thing, but. Like anyone who knows who's got a passion for it, whatever it is, it's just what you got to do. Or else you're just probably miserable doing anything else.
Do you think it's once you tap into something like this, like as an artist, and you become addicted to it in a way where it becomes your heroin to create?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because we do just like let go of other things and worrying about such and such just to continue to make this.
Right.
And to touch that, that invisible thing that we touch when we get to a place.
Hey man, life's short.
Creating.
And like whatever whatever tickles your balls, I just say do it, go for it. I mean, life is short. If you're gonna be miserable doing something else, what's the point? It's like, yeah, you could be doing something where you're making more money or doing something, unless obviously you have responsibilities like kids and family, and you need to really take that into consideration. I'm not saying don't forget about that, but yeah, I mean, in this world, things are sometimes bleak. You just need some sort of outlet. You need some sort of something to fill these holes in you, and music and art do that. And if you like to do that, then it is addictive. It's like, I need it.
I know that you also advocate for other musicians. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how you're working with that?
Yeah, I joined a union in 2020 called YUMA, which stands for the Union of Musicians and Allied Workers. Started over the pandemic with a handful of artists who were like, hey, what's going on? There's no safety net for us. There's like nothing. I think it was like, it initially started as to get a campaign for musicians and other freelancers to get unemployment, and which worked out, actually, honestly. So, but that was one thing that really hit me hard during the pandemic. It's like, we're screwed as artists and musicians. Like, really provide, so like I said, a cultural thing, and we're just screwed when stuff like this happens. And this is before we got unemployment, but even with unemployment, there's no unemployment for musicians normally, So I was like, I have to figure something out, not just for me, but how to like fix this or how to like deal with this for others, not just myself. So when YUMA came around, it was perfect. It was like, this is it. It's like young musicians, trying to build a union that represents all musicians. There's unions now, but they usually represent like other types of musicians, like whether it's session musicians or I'm thinking orchestral musicians. I can't think of the name, but not your standard issue. I'm in a band musician, so yeah, the organization's great. It's starting out. Just we got 30,000 signatures, to align with to support our cause and what we're trying to fight for. A lot of stuff, a lot of different subcommittees that came out of it that deal with label issues, that deal with streaming issues, that deal with like band safety, venue safety. I mean, all sorts of music-related things, and it's been a blessing to be a part of. But that's going to be a big part of me going forward, and hopefully we can make some really big change.
So anybody can join this?
Anybody can join. We just actually became incorporated, so we're now a nonprofit, so we can start now raising funds and hopefully get some grants and just put some stuff to work. And anyone can join it. There's no dues you need to sign up for or anything. But if you want to, we need voices, especially people of color, marginalized people. I'm one of the few non-white people in there, and like we need more people of color to kind of like to take part and get your voice out there. But yeah, it's important to me. It's something I needed to do outside of just playing music, and it's going to help obviously others, not just myself. And as an older OG now, because I'm in my mid-40s, it's like I've been through stuff.
You're a baby.
I've seen people get opportunities that I didn't get, most likely because of the color of my skin and other economical and social issues or whatever. But I don't want that to be the norm anymore moving forward. I want to do what I can to help out. And the union has a lot of energy, a lot of good ideas, a lot of good people, and I'm excited to be a part of it. But yeah, YUMA it was a blessing to find, and I want to continue helping it grow.
So if somebody wants to join, they go to the website?
Go to the website. Yeah, they can contact me. I'm one of the steering committee members. But
what's the website?
I believe it's Union of Musicians and Allied Workers.org. But
Google it.
I will. Yeah, YUMA.
And I'll put it right here underneath.
Yeah.
So it'll be here.
But yeah, and please, anybody, just check it out. You don't have to be like an active member on the streets doing anything crazy, but just joining in and re-amplifying our messages and stuff like that is always helpful. But just to be connected and to know what's happening.
Least go to the website and take a look for yourself. Yeah. If you can be a part of it, if you want.
Yeah, a lot of musicians come because they're interested in like the streaming stuff, especially the Joe Rogan, Neil Young stuff happening. Musicians not getting paid fairly. That's a big issue for me, as obviously as someone who makes their own music and owns their rights, that we're getting paid fractions of pennies.
When Eduardo Cardenas from Chicano Batman was on, I asked him, how he makes a living. He said, basically, if you want to make a living now, or you become a T-shirt salesman. So you put music out, you tour, but you're making money by selling T-shirts.
Yeah, I saw that episode too. He's a cool guy. I recorded him once. with Brain Story and I think Steve Salas before Steve Salas just died recently. But we did a song together. He's right, because that's how, and that's the thing about that pandemic. When things stopped, it's not just like the way people make money in bands stopped, shows and T-shirt sales, you know. And so the fact that those are the only ways musicians can make money at all, and not even a lot of money, mind you, because it has to pay for a bunch of stuff to actually be out there. But yeah, it needs to change. You need to get more money on the streaming end. I think that's my big issue for sure.
Well, hopefully people will join the union and help that cause. Going into a little bit how you mentioned you worked with them in the studio, what are some memorable projects that you've had as a studio?
You know, no one maybe people have heard of, but I used to have a studio across the street from me that was actually next door to these hotshot little studios. But mine was mainly a practice space that I converted into a studio, so I was able to like charge people super cheap. And it was a lot of young bands, a lot of Mexican bands, Latino bands and stuff, and female fronted bands. So I was pretty proud of that, because they couldn't go anywhere else. You know, they could record at home, but if they want to get a proper job, is usually have to pay a lot of money to some studio that doesn't care about your music or you or what your story is or whatever. So I was really thankful to just be able to record a lot of young bands during the 2010s mainly. And learn a lot from them and just be inspired by them and helping them, because I just wish someone had my back when I was younger and helped me not make so many mistakes. But so no like project I can think of right now that just sticks out. But recording all these young kids was really cool and really informative to how I work now. Even just like the same enthusiasm and I just want to be able to mentor as much as I can. I think
were you as experimental with their stuff as you are with your stuff?
It depends on what they wanted, because sometimes I could be more than they needed to be, and it depended on the music, honestly, because they did a lot of rock stuff, they did a lot of garage stuff, surf stuff. Some of it was acoustic. It was all over the place. So for me, it was actually fun because I got to work on stuff that wasn't necessarily my thing, but I got to like cut my teeth and learn how to like do this, learn how to like paint this as opposed to paint that. So it was just really working with young kids with new ideas and stuff was the most rewarding for me. I can't think of anything else that sticks out, but that was always good.
And before you did all this, you were in another band called Dios. And in 2004, you guys played Coachella. 2004.
I know. The Pixies, on the same day, the Pixies and Radiohead.
That's awesome.
And let me tell you, from what I can remember, because those brownies hit hard. It was great. And like just to be able to play, we played at 12:30. I didn't care. I was like, we get free tickets. And sure enough, there's tons of people there for us. It's like great.
What was the pressure of like being like the opening band?
You know what? I don't remember there being a lot of pressure. I mean, probably was, but I don't remember being super nervous. I mean, we've played other shows at that point, and the Wiltern, I guess, and other big places in my mind anyways. And it was early. Like I didn't think it was a big deal, like for some reason. It was just fun, and 10 kronas later, it probably doesn't matter anyways. But
is that music still out too, Dios?
Yeah, that's on Spotify. And I think I just released kind of the secret Dios record a few years ago that I put up on there too. But that was the first band that pretty much led the way to everything for me and helped me get my first experiences playing Coachella, Bonnaroo, Lollapalooza, ACL, South by Southwest, New York Times, CMJ, like anything, going to UK. I guess opening up for Morrissey when we thought he was cool. That was cool.
Really?
Yeah. That was funny. Yeah, that was cool. That was we were supposed to open him for 5 days at the Wiltern, but we were out of town. We were in the UK, and we could only do 1 day, but he still let us do 1 day, which is cool.
That's badass.
And the other unknown band at the time that took our slots was none other than The Killers.
No.
So they can thank me and our UK trip for their success. But the one cool memory about that is I invited my mom because I was like, okay, this is a show she should come to. And I remember getting there at 4 p.m. or something for load-in or whatever, lying around the block, just all these brown kids. It's like, oh, this is real. Like I remember hearing about the Mexican fans like forever since high school of Morrissey and Smith fans. But yeah, lying around the block at 4 p.m. and I was like, oh man, they're gonna like tear us apart just from waiting to get to Morrissey, right? But luckily it went well. I mentioned that I'm like, hey, thanks for being cool with us. I want to see Morrissey too. Like we're gonna be done in a second, but thanks for being cool. And
while you find your seats, we will be.
I was like, yeah, you know, I lost my virginity to a Morrissey song or something like that. I said that, and true story. And then everyone's yeah. And I don't know if you've been to the wheelchair downstairs, but they have those speakers you can hear the music from. And when I didn't know this until Morrissey was on stage, and then halfway through his set, he's like, "And I also want to say that I lost my virginity to a Morrissey song as well." And I was like, for me, that was like,
that's
okay.
dope. Yeah.
I was like, that's cool. I can sort of retire. This is when we thought he was cool, but that was a cool moment. So yeah, Dios was like the reason for all that stuff, that band, and I was pretty lucky to. It was with my brother too, was in the band, and some old friends from Hawthorne.
Nice. I gotta look that up. I didn't have a chance to look that up yet. What about, so this new album now comes out May
13th.
May 13th.
Close to Mexican Mother's Day.
Show.
Yeah.
And you gonna tour for this?
Not yet. I don't know what to do yet for that. Everything's so backed up right now.
Yeah.
We're just gonna see what happens. I don't ever want to tour unless it makes sense. Speaking of Dios, like we've done everything. We toured everywhere. We had a band that ran on Greece just to kind of make the money work out.
Yeah, just enough to keep it moving.
Yeah, and we slept on the floors like many bands do, and I ain't gonna do that anymore. So I won't be touring unless it makes sense.
Well,
or
how old were you in Dios?
Exactly, my 20s. So it's like
it's so fun then.
Exactly. And like right now, I'm like, I just want my bed, and you know. But I do want to go play somewhere and play places that make sense I've never been to before. Like I said, hopefully Latin American countries.
Your music, I think, fits everywhere, and I hope that you do get some calls to put you out in these festivals across the country and across the world, and hope they give you a good hotel.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'd be glad to play. But touring is a reality that people don't understand, that you don't make any money. It costs you money.
Yeah.
And not to mention the health and the health things that it does to you too. It's just, it's not easy, but I'm open to it, but we'll see what happens, I guess. Once the record goes like gold or something.
What do you think is like a dream festival for you guys?
Festival? There's been a couple recently, especially in Long Beach. I can't remember what they're called and who put them on, but like Los Bukis played and a bunch of these other like Latino bands.
Tropicalia?
Maybe Tropicalia. I'd be like, that'd be cool. Yeah. 'Cause I'd love to see some of these bands. Los Angeles Negros. I mean, I gotta say, these kids are finally getting hip to this stuff, because like 15 years ago, I was listening to Los Angeles Negros and Los Pasteles Verdes. I'm like, this stuff's dope. It's like 60s, like late 70s, like, but it's, you know, sung in Spanish, and it's cool stuff. And like now people are really digging it. These new generations of Latino kids are like digging it. I'm like, that's cool. And now they're playing out again. So I'd love to do something like that, where I can see some legacy bands of that stuff. That'd be cool.
I got to go to one of those last year. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hearing like the really old bands and the new bands.
I know. It's a great thing. I'm glad they did that, because it's a good look. Yeah, you want to see the old and new. Obviously, people love the old stuff, but there's new stuff out there. And
so if anybody knows anybody from Tropicalia,
hit me up.
Joel Jerome.
Yeah. I get the drummer for Los Lobos to help me out.
Okay.
And that's all good.
Yeah. All right. So we're close to the end here. Is there anything else you want to bring up?
Well, I talked about my union, which is important. Value yourself as a musician and artist. Always value yourself. Try to get what you can for yourself, because you deserve it. And no, I have nothing much else to say. I appreciate the support. I just want to say that I did reach out to you because I saw your work and it immediately struck me. Immediately, like, okay, this is cool. This is like, it's got energy. It's just a shot of them standing there, but there's energy to it, and that to me is everything. It's like, I got to work with this guy. I want to find out more about him. So I appreciate it that I got to do that with you and meet you and be on the show.
I'm glad I got to meet you.
And I love the podcast, actually. I put it on when I'm cleaning up the garage and in the studio. I put it on and listen. It's good stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. I'm glad I got to meet you and listen to your music and visit your studio, which is a gem in itself. It's a little treasure.
Joel Petto's workshop.
Yeah. There was one more word that I wrote here that I just want to touch upon a little bit. There's a tenderness to your music and to what you do that only comes from, well, I don't know if it only comes from, but it in me, there's a tenderness that comes from just a lot of pain too. So, there's like a place that your music also takes me of like like you understand this life and the shit that we go through.
Yeah,
and you somehow can put it in music.
My hippie friends would say it's because I'm a Pisces rising with the Scorpio moon, or Pisces, I forget what it is. But, empathetic. Yeah, it's like I don't know. I do like to, I don't like to show emotions to a lot of people in general, but I think it can come out of my music and stuff. And that's where I kind of show it more.
Yeah,
for sure.
And that's interesting because it's also like contemplative, where I'm listening to it, it's you talking, but makes me think about me without being accusatory or without being, like,
that's cool.
It's just kind of like,
that's kind of how I write it too.
Yeah, it's a vague, open thought, kind of like, hey, look at yourself, or think of this, or think of that, without blaming or pointing fingers or nothing. It's just, it's
that's
a
right
really,
on.
yeah, it's gorgeous.
That's cool. That's exactly what I go for too. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, there's a question that we end.
My boy.
Shout out to Chente.
Internet has everything, man. I tell you, $10 plus with shipping, $10 with shipping. I'm like, yeah, get it.
I'll take
3XL.
There's a question that we end every episode with. If you ever got to the end of the podcast,
I did.
And everything that you do, and all the magic that you do, and all the places that you take people with your music. The question is, Joel Jerome Morales, how do you do it?
I do it with flair, I do it with style, and I do it with grace, and I do it out of love.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. Thanks for coming out to the West Side.
Off to McCabe's, buy some guitars or something. We'll see. Maybe go to the beach.
Let's do it. See you next week.